Late one night, a group of criminals planned something shocking. They weren't after money or treasure. They wanted to steal Abraham Lincoln's body. Led by a clever but dangerous mastermind, the plan seemed bold, but it was full of mistakes. With a secret agent spying on them, things didn't go as they hoped. This is the unbelievable story of a failed heist that still leaves people stunned today. Stick around. It's a tale you won't forget. The years after the Civil War were a time of rebuilding and rapid industrial growth in the United States, but they were also a breeding ground for crime. Among the most pressing threats was the surge in counterfeit currency, a problem so vast it shook the nation's fragile economy. Amid this chaos, one man emerged as the undisputed king of counterfeiters, Ben Boyd, whose criminal empire left an indelible mark on history. At the heart of the counterfeiting crisis was the fragmented banking system of the time. Without a centralized currency, over 7,000 varieties of paper money circulated, each issued by different banks. This lack of uniformity was a goldmine for counterfeiters who flooded the economy with fake notes. By the 1860s, counterfeit bills made up nearly 1/3 of all currency in circulation, undermining trust and throwing the financial system into turmoil. Ben Boyd stood out as a master craftsman of deception. A skilled engraver by trade, Boyd transitioned into counterfeiting with an artistry that was unparalleled. His counterfeit bills were so convincing that even seasoned bank tellers struggled to distinguish them from the real thing. Operating from the Midwest, Boyd orchestrated a sprawling network of accomplices who spread his fake currency across state lines with remarkable precision. His tools were advanced, his methods meticulous, and his network well-oiled, a true empire of crime. The impact of Boyd's operations rippled across the nation. Farmers unknowingly accepted worthless notes for their crops. Merchants saw their earnings reduced to scraps of paper, and banks were saddled with valueless currency. The damage wasn't just financial, it eroded public confidence in the entire monetary system. Boyd's success became a wake-up call for the government, prompting urgent action. In response, the U.S. government took decisive steps. The Secret Service, established in 1865, was tasked primarily with battling counterfeiters like Boyd. Agents infiltrated his network, gathered intelligence, and tracked him down in Chicago in 1875. Boyd's arrest and subsequent conviction were hailed as major victories for law enforcement. Sentenced to 10 years in prison, his downfall marked the end of an era, but not the end of his legacy. Boyd's empire wasn't built alone. Behind him was a sophisticated network of engravers, distributors, and insiders. His engravers produced counterfeit plates with remarkable skill. Distributors spread the fake bills in small towns and cities, while insiders provided access to genuine currency samples and technique. This hierarchy operated with the precision of a military operation, ensuring Boyd's empire ran smoothly, even under intense scrutiny. The government's fight against counterfeiting went beyond Boyd's arrest. Standardized federal banknotes, or greenbacks, were introduced with intricate designs and watermarks to thwart counterfeiters. Banks and newspapers launched awareness campaigns, teaching citizens how to spot fake bills. These measures marked the beginning of a more secure financial system. Even behind bars, Boyd's name remained a symbol of the era's counterfeiting crisis. His arrest left a void in the criminal underworld, a vacuum his associates sought to fill with an audacious plan: the theft of Abraham Lincoln's body. Their desperate bid to free their leader would become one of the strangest chapters in American crime history, ensuring that Boyd's influence lingered long after his imprisonment. Chapter 2: The Mastermind, Big Jim Kennally. In the shadowy corners of Chicago's criminal underworld, a larger-than-life figure named Big Jim Kennally orchestrated one of the most audacious schemes in American history: a plot to steal Abraham Lincoln's body. Though lacking the sophistication of master counterfeiters like Ben Boyd, Kennally's reputation as a bold and resourceful opportunist made him a force to be reckoned with, at least in his own mind. Big Jim Kennally was a man of contradictions. Towering and intimidating, his nickname reflected both his physical presence and his commanding persona. By the 1870s, he had carved out a niche in crime through petty cons, forgery rings, extortion, and even grave robbing. Yet, despite his imposing presence, Kennally's criminal career was often marked by reckless schemes and haphazard planning. He thrived on audacity, believing boldness could mask his lack of finesse. Kennally's connection to Ben Boyd added a layer of intrigue to his story. As a middleman in Boyd's counterfeiting empire, Kennally had tasted the power that came with being part of a high-stakes operation. But Boyd's arrest in 1875 left a power vacuum, and Kennally saw a risky opportunity to elevate his standing. His plan? Steal Lincoln's body from its tomb in Springfield, Illinois, and ransom it for $200,000 and Boyd's freedom. Desperation fueled the scheme, but Kennally's choice of accomplices revealed his lack of judgment. He assembled a ragtag crew of questionable talent. Terrence Mullen, a bartender with no criminal experience, Jack Hughes, a drifter and petty thief, and Louis Sweigels, a seasoned grave robber who, unbeknownst to Kennally, was secretly working for the Secret Service. This disjointed team mirrored Kennally's own chaotic approach, setting the stage for disaster. Kennally's motivations for the heist were as grand as they were misguided. Financial gain, criminal prestige, and the allure of becoming a legend drove him to target Lincoln's tomb, a national symbol of unity and reverence. But Kennally's overconfidence became his Achilles heel. He underestimated everything, from the logistics of moving Lincoln's massive coffin to the loyalty of his hand-picked crew. He assumed the plan would unfold without a hitch, blinded by his belief in his own leadership. Big Jim's leadership style was a mix of charm and intimidation. He sold his accomplices on the promise of wealth and untouchable status, while using threats to keep them in line. Yet his impulsive decision-making and inability to foresee complications exposed him as more bluster than brain. Trusting the wrong people and failing to account for the weight of public sentiment surrounding Lincoln's legacy only compounded his misstep. Chapter 3. The Sacred Tomb of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's tomb, an enduring symbol of national reverence, was meant to immortalize the legacy of one of America's most cherished leaders. Built with solemnity and respect after his tragic assassination in 1865, it became both a site of mourning and a pilgrimage for countless Americans. Yet its sanctity was shattered in 1876 when it became the target of a bizarre and shocking crime, the attempted theft of Lincoln's body. After Lincoln's assassination, his body embarked on a 1,654-mile journey by funeral train, allowing mourners in cities across the nation to bid farewell. True to his wishes, Lincoln's final resting place was chosen in Springfield, Illinois, near his family home. Oak Ridge Cemetery, serene and picturesque, was selected for its tranquil setting. Construction of the tomb began in 1868, led by architect William W. Boyington, who envisioned a granite structure embodying strength and unity. The tomb featured a striking 117-foot obelisk, a towering tribute to Lincoln's enduring impact. Funded by public donations, the memorial stood as a testament to the profound respect Americans held for their fallen leader. Inside, Lincoln's coffin lay beneath a white marble sarcophagus in a central chamber. The tomb also held the remains of Mary Todd Lincoln and 3 of their sons. Its simple yet dignified design evoked solemnity, allowing visitors to reflect on Lincoln's legacy. Open to the public, the site attracted citizens from all walks of life who came to pay homage. Despite its grandeur, the tomb was vulnerable in ways unthinkable at the time. Security was virtually non-existent, with no permanent guards and rudimentary locking mechanisms. Oak Ridge Cemetery's seclusion, while enhancing its serenity, also provided cover for those with malicious intent. In an era when grave robbing was mostly associated with supplying medical schools or settling private feuds, few imagined the audacity of criminals targeting such a sacred site. For the nation, Lincoln's tomb was far more than a burial place. It stood as a beacon of unity, a reminder of his tireless efforts to preserve the Union and end slavery. Pilgrims journeyed to Springfield, turning the tomb into a cultural touchstone and an emblem of collective mourning. Its significance, however, also made it a tempting target. For criminals like Big Jim Kennally, the tomb's symbolic and financial value represented an opportunity to exploit public sentiment for ransom. The 1876 attempted theft of Lincoln's body exposed these vulnerabilities and sent shockwaves across the country. To the perpetrators, the heist seemed deceptively simple. The tomb's lack of security promised an easy payday. but the crime horrified a nation, uniting citizens in outrage and reaffirming the sacredness of Lincoln's legacy. In the wake of this unprecedented plot, decisive steps were taken to safeguard the tomb. Lincoln's coffin was encased in a steel cage and buried under a solid layer of concrete. Security measures were bolstered, with guards assigned to patrol the site, especially during vulnerable nighttime hours. The incident also spurred public awareness about the need to protect national treasures from desecration. Chapter 4. The Outlandish Plan. The audacious plot to steal Abraham Lincoln's body in 1876 remains one of the most bizarre and poorly conceived crimes in American history. Devised by Big Jim Kennally, the scheme combined desperation, greed, and stunning incompetence, relying on a ragtag group of conspirators and a wildly overestimated sense of their own capabilities. The plan had its roots in Kenneally's determination to secure the release of Ben Boyd, a master counterfeiter imprisoned in Illinois. For Kennally, the heist represented not just a way to free Boyd, but a chance to elevate his status in the criminal underworld. The conspirators intended to demand $200,000 in ransom for the return of Lincoln's remains, a staggering sum for the era, while leveraging the emotional and symbolic value of the president's legacy to pressure the government into compliance. Kennally's gang, however, was a reflection of his flawed leadership. He recruited Terrence Mullen, a saloon owner with no experience in grave robbing, Jack Hughes, a petty thief chosen for his strength rather than his expertise, and Louis Sweigels, a seemingly experienced grave robber whose involvement would later reveal itself as the gang's greatest undoing. Sweigels was, in fact, an informant working for the Secret Service, ensuring that law enforcement stayed one step ahead of the plot. The gang's preparations showcased their glaring lack of foresight. Armed with basic tools like shovels, crowbars, and a rented wagon, they severely underestimated the physical and logistical challenges of breaking into the heavily constructed tomb. The timeline of their operation, set for November 7, 1876, election night, was chosen under the mistaken belief that law enforcement would be too distracted by the national event to notice activity at Oak Ridge Cemetery. This assumption ignored the measures already in place to protect Lincoln's tomb, including guards hired precisely because of growing concerns over its security. Kennally's overconfidence further undermined the plan. Convinced of his own leadership and the inevitability of success, he brushed aside the gang's lack of experience, the inadequate resources, and the critical importance of secrecy. Discussions about the heist were conducted openly, leaving the plot vulnerable to leaks and infiltration, most notably by Sweigels, whose reports to the Secret Service laid the groundwork for the plan's eventual exposure. Adding to the absurdity was the gang's failure to anticipate basic obstacles. They had no concrete plan for moving the 500-pound marble sarcophagus or handling unforeseen complications. Kennally, blinded by ambition, assumed that their symbolic target, Lincoln's remains, would compel the government to act swiftly and capitulate to their demand. In reality, the government was prepared to respond decisively to such a brazen violation of national reverence. The plot's fragility lay in its blend of ambition and ineptitude. The choice of Lincoln's tomb was as daring as it was misguided, fueled by the belief that targeting such a revered figure would force a swift resolution. However, the gang's amateurish execution and Kennally's overestimation of their capabilities doomed the plan from the outset. Chapter 5. The Undercover Mole. Louis Sweigels' role in the attempted theft of Abraham Lincoln's body stands as a testament to how a single informant can alter the course of history. Embedded within the gang as an undercover operative, Sweigels turned what could have been a monumental crime into a humiliating failure for the conspirators. His dual identity as both a seasoned grave robber and a covert informant made him the linchpin of the entire operation. Sweigels, a man with a history steeped in petty crime and grave robbing, was no stranger to the shadows of the 19th century criminal underworld. His expertise in navigating this murky realm initially made him appear to be a perfect recruit for Big Jim Kennally's scheme, but his criminal past also made him vulnerable to law enforcement's leverage. Facing potential prison time for prior offenses, Sweigels struck a deal with the Secret Service, agreeing to infiltrate the plot in exchange for leniency. Posing as a willing accomplice, Sweigels quickly gained the gang's trust. He played his role masterfully, presenting himself as an experienced operative eager to contribute to the heist. Behind the scenes, he provided law enforcement enforcement with precise details about the plan's timing, the gang's methods, and their intended target. This information allowed the Secret Service to stay a step ahead, ensuring the gang's failure before they could even breach the tomb. The Secret Service's interest in the case went beyond simply protecting Lincoln's tomb. At the time, the agency's primary focus was combating counterfeiting, but the potential implications of such a high-profile crime warranted their intervention. With Sweigels as their inside man, the authorities coordinated surveillance at Oak Ridge Cemetery, positioning themselves to intercept the gang at the critical moment. Sweigels' contributions proved decisive. On the night of the heist, law enforcement lay in wait, armed with the intelligence he had provided. As the conspirators began their clumsy attempt to break into the tomb, the authorities swiftly moved in, catching the gang before they could execute their plan. Without Sweigels' infiltration, the plot might have unfolded far enough to hold Lincoln's remains ransom, plunging the nation into chaos and outrage. Despite his role in stopping the crime, Sweigels did not emerge as a celebrated hero. His reputation as a criminal cast a shadow over his contributions, and public perception of him remained ambivalent. While he avoided prosecution for his involvement in the plot, his name never rose to prominence, overshadowed by the audacity of the crime itself and the ineptitude of its perpetrators. Sweigels' legacy is a curious one. Though not a hero by intention, his actions ensured the protection of one of America's most sacred sites and preserved the dignity of Lincoln's memory. Chapter 6. The Heist That Never Happened. On the night of November 7, 1876, the conspirators of one of America's most daring criminal plots arrived at Oak Ridge Cemetery under the cloak of darkness. Big Jim Kennally's gang believed they were poised for success, armed with tools and an audacious plan to steal Abraham Lincoln's body. Yet, what unfolded that evening was not the grand heist they had envisioned, but a series of missteps and miscalculations that ended in their spectacular downfall. As the gang approached Lincoln's tomb, their confidence was palpable. The cemetery, quiet and secluded, seemed the perfect location. The gang believed the timing, coinciding with the distraction of the presidential election, was ideal. Their tools, shovels, crowbars, and a wooden cart for the coffin seemed sufficient for the task. But the conspirators were unaware that the Secret Service, thanks to undercover informant Louis Sweigels, had already set a trap. Positioned nearby, agents observed every move. The authorities had meticulously planned their intervention, prepared to catch the gang in the act. Yet the conspirators pressed on, oblivious to the danger lurking in the shadows. The gang's first challenge came quickly. Breaking through the outer stone walls of the tomb proved far more difficult than anticipated. The structure, designed to endure, withstood their tool. Frustration mounted as their efforts produced more noise than progress. Every clang of metal against stone carried through the cemetery, alerting the agents that the time to act was near. Suddenly, the silence of the night was broken by the swift movements of law enforcement. Surrounding the gang, agents moved in with precision, catching the conspirators mid-act. Kennally and his associates, unprepared for such a rapid response, were stunned. Their confidence evaporated as they were arrested on the spot, their plans shattered. The fallout was immediate and far-reaching. News of the thwarted heist spread like wildfire, shocking the nation. Americans were appalled at the audacity of the crime, but relieved it had failed. The plot's absurdity and failure became a national sensation, overshadowing the conspirators' intentions with public ridicule. For Kennally, the consequences were dire. His reputation as a criminal mastermind was obliterated, and his name became synonymous with failure. The gang's capture also marked a turning point for grave robbers across the country, as authorities implemented stricter measures to protect burial sites. The attempted heist had broader implications. The incident underscored the vulnerability of national monuments, prompting a reevaluation of security protocol. Lincoln's tomb, in particular, became a heavily guarded site, ensuring such a plot could never be repeated. Chapter 7. The Aftermath of Failure. In the days following the botched heist of Abraham Lincoln's body, the fallout was as swift as it was damning. Big Jim Kennally and his gang faced the full weight of the law, while the public grappled with the audacity of the attempted crime. This chapter explores the ripple effects of the failed heist, its impact on the criminals, the public, and the legacy of Lincoln's tomb. The arrests came quickly after the gang was apprehended in the act. Kennally, the mastermind of the plot, faced a courtroom packed with spectators eager for justice. Prosecutors laid out a damning case, emphasizing the gang's intent to defile the grave of a beloved national hero. Public sentiment was fierce. Americans demanded severe punishment to match the severity of the crime. The trial's outcome was inevitable: harsh sentences for most of the conspirators, with Kennally receiving a long prison term that marked the end of his criminal career. For Kennally, the failure was personal as well as professional. His reputation as a cunning criminal gave way to ridicule. Stripped of his status, he became a cautionary tale, a once notorious figure, now remembered for his humiliating defeat. The other conspirators fared little better. Some received lighter sentences due to cooperation or lesser involvement, but all bore the mark of public scorn. Their families, too, suffered ostracization, with the stigma of the crime lingering for years. The authorities moved quickly to address these concerns. Lincoln's tomb became a symbol of national pride and a top security priority. Guards were stationed at the site around the clock. Access was restricted, and significant funds were allocated to ensure its protection. The government's swift action reassured the public and set a new standard for safeguarding historical landmarks. Despite the disgrace of the criminals and the initial shock, the failed heist became a curious footnote in American history. Its bizarre nature captured the public's imagination, inspiring tales of crime and folly that persisted for generations. For Lincoln's tomb, the incident underscored its importance as a symbol of national unity, ensuring it remained one of the most carefully protected and revered sites in the country. The aftermath of the heist reshaped public attitudes toward crime, bolstered efforts to protect historical monuments, and left an indelible mark on the legacy of Abraham Lincoln's final resting place. The gang's audacity may have failed spectacularly, but their story endures as a strange and cautionary tale of ambition, greed, and ultimate failure. Chapter 8. Lincoln's Final Resting Place. The tomb's original design reflected the grandeur of Lincoln's legacy. Architect Larkin Goldsmith Meade envisioned an imposing memorial centered on a towering obelisk symbolizing the nation's gratitude. Despite challenges in funding and delays, construction began in 1868 and resulted in a majestic structure that has stood the test of time. Crafted from granite and marble, the tomb features a soaring 117-foot obelisk atop a sturdy granite platform. Within, a simple yet elegant chamber houses Lincoln's remains, shielded by heavy bronze doors. Adorning the tomb are sculptural tributes, including a life-size statue of Lincoln that captures his reflective spirit. These elements, blending classical and modern styles, convey both the solemnity and reverence owed to Lincoln's memory. However, the tomb's story didn't end with its completion. It has been shaped and reshaped by history. In the aftermath of the infamous 1876 heist attempt, security became a paramount concern. Guards were stationed, access restricted, and protective measures enhanced. Subsequent renovations in the 20th and 21st centuries further fortified the tomb, ensuring its preservation against time and the elements. Landscaping improvements, structural updates, and modern conservation techniques have all played a role in maintaining its integrity. Today, Lincoln's tomb is a site of pilgrimage, attracting visitors from across the globe who come to pay their respect. On special occasions like Lincoln's birthday or the anniversary of his assassination, crowds gather to honor his legacy through ceremonies and reflections. The tomb also hosts educational programs and guided tours, enriching visitors' understanding of Lincoln's life and his contributions to the nation. Preservation remains a top priority. Managed by the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency, the tomb benefits from advanced conservation methods to safeguard its materials and artistic elements. Through ongoing maintenance and modernization efforts, the site continues to thrive as a place of learning, reflection, and national pride. Lincoln's tomb is more than a burial site. It is a living monument to his enduring legacy. It stands as a beacon of the values he championed: unity, justice, and sacrifice. Generations of visitors have found inspiration within its walls, ensuring that Lincoln's story remains etched in the heart of America for centuries to come. Chapter 9. The Bizarre Crime That Captured the Nation. The attempted theft of Abraham Lincoln's body wasn't just a crime. It was a bizarre and audacious plot that captured the imagination of the American public. Its uniqueness, involving the remains of a revered national hero made it one of the most sensational criminal stories of the late 19th century. The crime's impact rippled through American culture, sparking conversations about crime, national identity, and the protection of historical treasures. Newspapers across the country were consumed with sensationalized accounts of the crime. The audacity of the plot, combined with the high-profile nature of the target, made for a captivating narrative. Reporters often exaggerated the details, casting the criminals as daring masterminds involved in a complex and perilous heist. Some newspapers even wove in speculative motives, ranging from ransom demands to a misguided desire to use Lincoln's body as a symbol for the Irish immigrant community. These rumors, though unverified, only added to the intrigue surrounding the crime. As the story unfolded, it became clear that the heist was more than just an isolated criminal act. It was a cultural event. Lincoln's status as a national hero made the crime seem all the more shocking, cementing his place in the public imagination as a symbol of moral authority. The attempt to steal his body symbolized not just a theft, but a cultural betrayal. In a time when the country was still healing from the Civil War, the crime underscored the vulnerability of even the most sacred national symbols. Though the criminals behind the plot were caught and their scheme foiled, the legacy of the crime lived on. The bizarre nature of the heist, combined with the audacity of its execution, ensured that the story would remain a fixture of American history. It wasn't just a failed robbery, it was a cultural moment that highlighted the significance of national symbols and the lengths to which people will go to protect them.